On our 10th anniversary, my wife smiled like she was handing me cake, then told me she'd married me on a dare, right before serving papers that aimed to pry our $13 million Greenwich Village townhouse out from under my name. She thought the clock favored her, a sunset clause at 10 years. Except the moment I replayed our wedding video, a stranger's camera flashed a police evidence tag, and a voice I didn't expect would call before dawn. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I'm Ethan Hale, 41, born upstate, built my way down to Manhattan one change order at a time. I'm a construction project manager turned small developer. Nothing fancy. Brownstones, gut renovations, solar retrofits when the numbers pencil. The townhouse at 138 West 11th was the crown jewel. We bought it in June 2019 for $11.7 million, restored the cornice, tucked geothermal wells under the tiny rear yard, refinanced when rates slid. By last spring, every glossy magazine that still mentioned architecture had used our parlor floor as a backdrop for a designer interview. Her name is Lena. Lena Harper when we married, Lena Hale on every holiday card, Ms. Harper Hale on every invoice she didn't want to pay. We met in 2014 at a charity gallery show in Tribeca. Her laugh did that rising thing that makes you think she's impressed by you, not the room. We married at the Prospect Park Boathouse on September 14, 2015. If you were in Brooklyn that evening, you remember the heat. Fireflies hovered over the water like a promise that wouldn't hold. I remember the promise. I also remember the prenup. It wasn't punitive, just clean. We both had assets, both had ambitions. My lawyer, a woman who had kept me from wrecking myself more than once, pushed for disclosures, a sunset clause and a clause that sounded like a joke at the time, radical honesty. The idea was simple. If either of us lied in a material way to induce the marriage, the liar forfeited claims under equitable distribution to any assets titled in the other's name. We both initialed the clause, ink still tacky in August heat. 10 years crept up faster than concrete cures in January, and on September 14, 2025, Lena didn't kiss me. She handed me a manila envelope. Equitable distribution, she said, like it was a menu item. I want the townhouse. We both know I made it a home. She was careful. Calm. Her voice had that even tone of someone reading a script. She'd already moved things. The travel photos were gone from the stairs. Her studio desk, with the half-finished painting that always looked like stormwater, was stripped bare. She'd left her planter by the sunny south window. That felt like a joke, too. One problem: the prenup didn't sunset until midnight. I asked her to sit. She stood. I asked who told her to file at 5 p.m. on a Sunday. She checked her watch. My attorney said it was strategic. She lifted a shoulder. And honest. I married you as part of a bet, Ethan. I should get something for it. Air left the room. My back tightened like rebar under strain. There's a particular kind of silence inside these old townhouses when a window isn't quite shut. Pressure shifts the house size. She smiled at that silence like she owned it. I didn't shout. I nodded. I told her I'd read the papers. She lifted the planter, as if to punctuate the exit, and carried it out into the gold of September. But then, I took the envelope to the kitchen island and laid out every sheet like tiles: summons with notice, verified complaint, a motion for temporary exclusive occupancy, and a proposed order that would let her change the locks. The affidavit was the worst part. The marital home is mine in equity. I contributed my career and my care for 10 years, and there is no enforceable prenuptial agreement. No enforceable? That was new. I called my lawyer. Voicemail. It was Sunday. I took a breath and did what I always do when a subcontractor tries to push a change after close of business. I opened my laptop, pulled the prenup PDF, verified the executed copy in the cloud, and checked the timestamps. Signed August 24, 2015. Notarized at a Chase branch on Court Street. Initials on every page. No sunset clause wiping it out at 10 years. Just language that certain spousal support provisions changed if we hit the decade mark without children. I printed it. I stacked it. I poured coffee I wouldn't drink. And then, because stillness is a trap, I tried to understand the sentence she'd thrown like a bottle. I married you as part of a bet. There's an old high school in me that hates being the punchline. I pulled the wedding video from a dusty external hard drive with a post-it that read, "Boathouse, backup." I clicked, dragged, pressed play. The boathouse porch lights swam like pearls in a pond. There I was, younger and hopeful, kissing Lena's knuckles as we walked past friends with mason jars. Music warped as I scrubbed through. At 9 minutes 17, the frame caught something I'd never seen. He wasn't the official videographer. He was off to the far left, at the edge of the boathouse porch, half hidden behind a column. Late 30s, clean-shaven, cheap tucks too tight in the shoulders. He lifted a Canon DSLR with a matte box I recognized from rental houses. Taped to the battery grip, under the camera's serial number, was a white rectangular sticker with a grey shield, a barcode, and a block font I know too well from city jobs, property, police evidence. I froze the frame. I leaned in. The label had a case number. PM 2015-0914 to 127, the day we married. Except, why would an evidence label be on a camera at my wedding? Why would any cop bring a tagged camera to a boathouse in Brooklyn under fairy lights? The question cut a hole big enough to crawl through. I saved the still. I emailed it to myself. I dug up an old password to a message board for New York videographers and posted under a throwaway handle, "Anyone recognize this label? Wedding September 14th, 2015. Prospect Park Boathouse." I asked for DM-only responses. I included only the cropped label. I hit post. Then I did what fixes 90% of fires, preservation. At 10:03 p.m., I sent Lena's counsel an emailed notice to preserve electronically stored information. I included a one-line spoliation warning and a request for immediate acknowledgement. I copied my lawyer and marked the email high importance like it would change gravity. At 10:11, I logged into the Department of Finance portal and placed a notice of change contact on the property profile for the townhouse, so any title inquiry would email me. At 10:18, I opened our joint bank account and printed the last 6 months. There were cash withdrawals I didn't recognize. $7,200 on July 2nd, $5,000 on August 19th. Not huge, but not nothing. At 11:12 p.m., my phone rang with a number that didn't care about the hour. Unknown. 202 area code. I let it buzz once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered. "Mr. Hale?" "Speaking. My name is Thomas Keene. I'm retired bureau. I've been waiting 10 years to tell you the truth." I didn't respond right away. The house did its pressure shift. "What truth?" "The label you froze," he said. "That case number. It was part of an undercover gambling investigation that spun out around 2015. We called it the September Pool. Some of the players bet on life events. Weddings, births, bankruptcies, things they could influence. It went quiet after an evidence tech took early retirement for family reasons. I told myself if the case ever unsealed, I'd call the one groom who looked me straight in the camera and didn't know the punchline. I sat at the island. I put him on speaker. "Say that again." "The man with the camera," Keene said. "He wasn't your videographer. He was tangential to a crew attached to a private club on East 63rd. Money men, a few hedge boys, a couple of cops with side hustles. They ran an annual board they called the September Pool. Bets closed on September 14th at midnight. Most guys wagered on market swings or who'd get engaged at whose party. 1 or 2 got uglier. "Get him to marry you," and so on. "Prove it with video. Collect in 10 years. Why 10? Sunsets," he said. "Prenups. Vesting. Hearts hardened by then. Easy to claim equity." My hands went cold. The prenup clause about radical honesty felt like a rope across a canyon. I told him about Lena's sentence, about the papers. "I can't give you active files," Keene said, "but I can give you names to subpoena. 2 were my informants. They'll share to save themselves. And I can give you a sworn declaration that the label you saw matches an entry in a property ledger that was never supposed to be used like that." "Why tell me now?" "Because my gag expired," he said softer. "And because no one gets to make you the story without you deciding the ending until..." He emailed me from a Proton address minutes later, a copy of his retired credentials, a one-page declaration with his signature and that particular federal block lettering, and a list of names. I drafted a midnight email to my lawyer. Retired FBI agent has declaration regarding wedding day surveillance tied to private gambling pool. Suggests inducement to marriage as part of BET. At 12:07 a.m., Lena texted, "Stop harassing my attorney." I didn't reply. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. I slept in denim on top of the covers like fieldwork. By 7:40 a.m., I was on the 27th floor of a glass box on Madison, in a conference room that smelled like new carpet and fear. My lawyer, Reese Carr, held Keen's declaration to the window like she could test its tensile strength. She looked at me over the page. "You're telling me your wife admitted to marrying you as part of a bet?" she asked. Her words, "And you have a retired federal agent willing to swear that an evidence tag at your wedding links to a private betting pool that closed the night you married?" "Yes." Reese nodded once and spoke to the room like a foreman at a critical pour. "We proceed on 3 tracks. 1. Immediate TRO to stop any transfer, lock changes or encumbrances on the townhouse. Attach the prenup and Keen's declaration. 2. Subpoenas to the club for betting ledgers, to the videography shop that rented that cannon, and to the 3 names Keen provided. Also a FOIL request to the NYPD property clerk for chain of custody on the tag number visible in the still. 3. Preserve and collect Lena's communications, phones, iCloud, messaging platforms, by agreement or court order. If she spoliates, we seek sanctions and adverse inferences. We also notify her counsel that you intend to move to enforce the radical honesty clause and to impose a constructive trust on any marital assets she obtained by fraud. We ask for a 10-day expedited deposition notice. We move." I nodded. "And the bet?" "If we find a ledger," Reese said, "will show intent. Fraudulent inducement isn't easy post-ceremony, but the prenup is your anchor. It creates a private law between the two of you. If she lied to induce, she forfeits distribution on assets in your name. The townhouse is titled in your revocable trust, with you as trustee. We'll freeze it." At 9:12 a.m., we filed the emergency order to show cause. At 11:05, we stood in front of Justice Carraway, a judge with a resting expression that dared you to waste her time. Lena's counsel appeared on an emergency call-in. I laid out the facts in short sentences that felt like temporary shoring: marriage date, prenup clause, admission, video still, declaration. The judge leaned forward only once. "A bet," she said, "on a marriage?" "That is our concern, Your Honor," Reese said, "and it goes to the heart of equitable distribution." The judge signed the TRO. Temporary exclusive occupancy to neither party until a hearing 10 days out. No lock changes, no transfers, no encumbrances. She added a stern line: violation punishable by contempt, at $500 per day. "One problem," Lena's counsel shook his head, tight smile. "We will challenge the prenuptial agreement as unconscionable," he said, "and any declaration from a retired agent is hearsay without court verification." Reese said, "Then we'll verify." I didn't look at Lena. She didn't look at me. We left with a stamped order that felt heavier than its paper. The next days were work. We served subpoenas. We sent FOIL requests. We hired a digital forensics firm for an $8,200 retainer to image Lena's MacBook if the court ordered it. I went home and moved through rooms like a ghost that still paid the utilities. I labeled, "Boxes do not move." I slept on the 3rd-floor sofa because the primary bedroom felt like a set we'd rented. On day 3, Keen called again. "You'll want to look for a group chat name," he said. "Something like Pool House or Boathouse Back Room." They thought they were clever. I wrote it down. I wrote everything down. Notes have saved my life more times than I care to admit. On day 4, our process server returned from the club on East 63rd, private, quiet, backed by a trust. No registered agent. Doors closed to anyone without a key fob. But he'd managed to serve a groundskeeper who muttered about September calendars, and that, Reese said, was something. On day 5, the FOIL officer from the property clerk's office responded to my request with a curt email: "We have no record of a camera affixed with tag PM 2015 to 0914-127. released to non-department personnel. If you believe city property was misused, you may contact the Department of Investigation. Reese copied the DOI in her reply and attached Keene's declaration. She CC'd the district attorney with a courtesy note of potential criminal misuse of city property. We weren't playing sideways. On day 6, Lena filed an affirmation in opposition. She denied a bet. She said I had imagined the statement. She said the prenup was sprung on her days before the wedding, untrue, and signed under duress. She said I weaponized my resources and friends in law enforcement, also untrue. She painted a picture where I was concrete and she was color, except attached to her affirmation was a screen grab to show how controlling I was about finances, our joint budgeting app. In the bottom left corner of that grab was a notification. Pool house, new message, midnight means midnight. Don't get sentimental, timestamps don't lie. Her lawyer had uploaded it without cropping. My stomach dropped, then lifted. We printed it, we circled it. We prepared to use her own exhibit as a map. The hearing on day 10 packed a thin gallery. Justice Caraway scanned the motion stack like she held a blade. We went first. Reese did what she does, no adjectives, just verbs. Filed, served, noticed, preserved. Then she placed 3 exhibits on the ledge, the prenup with initials, Keene's declaration, and Lena's budgeting screenshot with the pool house notification. Your Honor, she said, voice even. We've also served expedited deposition notices to 3 individuals Mr. Keene identified. One has already reached out through counsel to proffer a ledger to avoid being named. Lena's attorney stood. He argued unconscionability. He argued hearsay. He argued romance. The judge lifted a hand. Miss Harper Hale, she said, cutting through counsel. Stand, please. Lena rose in a navy blazer that made her look smaller somehow. She stared past me. Do you participate in or observe a group chat called Pool House? The judge asked. Lena hesitated. I'm in a lot of group chats. That wasn't the question, the judge said. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Our messages like, midnight means midnight. Don't get sentimental, common on that chat. Lena swallowed. I don't recall. You will, the judge said, because I'm ordering an immediate forensic image of your phone and laptop by a neutral expert. You will sit for a deposition within 10 days. Mr. Hale's counsel will have access to metadata, and any deletion after the preservation notice will result in sanctions and adverse inference. Lena's lawyer started to object. The judge looked at him and didn't blink. He stopped. Then the mid-roll surge hit like a slab slipping from a crane. While we fought over chat logs, a title search pinged my inbox at 2:13 p.m. A new inquiry on our address. Not from a lender. From a Delaware LLC, Rook Street Holdings, out of Wilmington. Someone was trying to check title history, maybe prep a quick claim. I traced the agent address. It matched a firm Lena's cousin used to form single-purpose entities for art transactions. I forwarded the alert to Reese with 2 words. They're moving. We filed a supplemental affirmation in support within the hour. We attached the title inquiry. We asked for a temporary receiver to watch any attempt to transfer or encumber. The judge, not known for speed, moved like a woman who'd seen this script. Granted, she said from the bench the next morning, receiver appointed. Any attempt to transfer or encumber will be void ab initio. The notice of pendency Mr. Hale filed will remain until further order. If you don't work in real property, here's what that means in plain steel. The house just became too hot to touch. 2 days later, the neutral forensic expert, grey suit, careful shoes, showed up at Lena's sublet near the West Side Highway with a Pelican case and a court order. He cloned her iPhone and MacBook. Lena watched, arms crossed. The expert drove the drives to a lab in Long Island City and processed 3 hashes. We waited. On day 16, I sat in a window seat at the house and thought about the boathouse porch. I stared at the wall where we'd hung our first framed thing, the architectural drawing of the parlor molding. I thought about the sound her heels made on the stairs. I thought about the word bet, until it lost shape. My phone buzzed. Reese. We got it. What? A chat called Pool House. Goes back to 2015. They used it every September. The night before your wedding, someone named Gables wrote, Seal it by midnight, sweetheart. Initial the page. Take a picture if you have to. At 12:03 a.m., Lena posted a photo of the prenup signature page. The image metadata shows she took it at 12:01. That matters because she's been claiming duress before midnight. They joked about toasts, about odds. And then there's this. 2 days after the wedding, a spreadsheet upload labeled September Pool 2015. There's a line item. H. Marries without waiver. 10-year option. Stake $250,000. Holders, Gables MD, LS. Initials, 2 match Keen's list, she said. The third is that evidence tech, and there's more. In 2020, a message, get the place in the trust, split control by 2024, refi at lower rate so the sell hits higher. People forget paper trails by then. I exhaled. Lena, she replies with a heart. It wasn't love, it was confirmation. We amended our motion. We added a cause of action for fraudulent inducement tied to the prenup's radical honesty clause. We attached screenshots with metadata. We included Keen's declaration and an affidavit from one of the pool house members turning state's civil witness, I suppose, to avoid sanctions. We asked for what I told myself not to say out loud, exclusive title quieted in my name, forfeiture of any claim by Lena to the townhouse and to any asset titled to me or my trust, disgorgement of any money she'd withdrawn from our joint accounts tied to the scheme, attorney's fees, and sanctions for spoliation for 3 deleted messages in 2016 that the forensic team recovered partials of from iCloud's server-side data. The hearing on the amended motion felt different. The gallery had more suits I didn't know. The city's Department of Investigation sent a lawyer. The DA's office sat in back, arms folded. Justice Carraway stared at the pool house printouts with an expression somewhere between disgust and disappointment. Ms. Harper Hale, she said at one point, do you deny sending this message? Sunsets save me. Just 8 more years. Lena's voice shook. I don't remember. Your phone does, the judge replied. Lena's counsel tried to reframe it as dark jokes, bad friends, gallows humor. He tried to argue that whatever the chat was, marriage is complicated. People say things. Reese let him swing, then laid the clause in the prenup on the lectern. If either party materially lies or omits a material fact to induce the other to marry, the party so lying forfeits claims under equitable distribution to assets titled in the other party's name, she read. They initialed it. Ms. Harper Hale sent a photograph of the page to a betting pool 3 minutes after midnight to prove compliance with a term that would benefit her and third parties in 10 years. She entered into the marriage under the influence of a wager. That is a material lie. The judge took 2 weeks to draft the decision. Some days I walked to the river and back without hearing the city. Some nights I replayed that 9 minutes 17 seconds until my eyes blurred and the label shifted into abstraction. Keen called once, told me a story about a case in '02 where a man stole copper wiring out of schools because it looked like money without kids attached. Patterns, he said. People who think life events are markets make everything they touch a commodity. On October 8, 2025, the clerk stamped the decision and slid it into the e-file system. Reese called. Her voice had a smile in it this time. We won. I sat down before she read. The decision was 31 pages, tight type, no fat. Justice Carraway started with the prenup, called it the private constitution of this marriage and found it enforceable. She wrote that Lena's participation in a group called Pool House, her messaging contemporaneous with the execution of the prenup, and the ledger reflect a scheme at odds with the very concept of consent and partnership this court is tasked to protect. She found that the radical honesty clause applied. She held that Lena forfeited equitable distribution claims to assets titled in my name, including the townhouse at 138 West 11th Street, the Hale revocable trust assets, and a brokerage account she'd eyed for equalization. Then the judge went further than I'd let myself imagine. She imposed a constructive trust on $312,000 traced to withdrawals from our joint accounts that Lena made within 3 months of filing. She ordered disgorgement within 60 days. She granted attorneys fees in light of the spoliation and the burden placed on Mr. Hale to obtain evidence of a scheme perpetrated in secret, amount to be set at a later hearing. She referred the matter of the evidence label and the misuse of city property to the Department of Investigation and the DA. And then, in a paragraph I read 3 times, she wrote, "This court will not allow a marriage to be used as a vehicle for wages by those in proximity to power." Except one thing remained. Lena stood at the end, tears in her eyes that didn't look like a performance anymore. She asked to speak. The judge allowed 2 sentences. Lena turned to me. "I'm sorry," she said. "It started as a dare in a room where men thought everything had a price, including me. It turned into a life I liked until I remembered the clock." I wanted to ask which part she liked. The mornings with coffee and tile catalogues. The first snow on the stoop. The fight about the roof deck railing height. The way we learned the creaks of the house. But I didn't ask anything. I nodded like a man nods to a crane operator after a load lands safe. After the hearing, outside on the courthouse steps, Keene waited. Tan jacket, face carved by years of fluorescent lights and bad coffee. He shook my hand. "You did it clean," he said. "You gave me a rope," I answered. He looked up at the slice of October sky. "You know the thing about evidence labels?" "What?" "They're meant to remind us that every object has a story attached. Chain of custody is just an agreement to tell the story straight." Days became practical again. The receiver closed up shop. The DOF lifted the flags. The locksmith replaced the cylinder after the court's final order granted me exclusive occupancy. I changed passwords. I cancelled a HELOC application I hadn't filed. The forensic invoices stung, but the numbers felt like rebar. Expensive, but you sleep under floors they hold. 2 weeks later, the DOI investigator called to say the evidence tech had cooperated. The club on 63rd went dark. Someone bought the lease out. The September pool, which had thought itself mythic, found out it was just a group chat with bad jokes and bad math. I didn't cheer. I fixed a sticky hinge on the pantry door. On a Saturday in late October, I carried the planter Lena left out onto the stoop. The south window still gave it light. I watered it and tilted the terracotta so it wouldn't stain the bluestone. A couple walked past, arguing softly about anchors and drywall. I smiled without meaning to. That night I played the wedding video one last time. At 9 minutes 17, the frame still caught the man and the label. I paused, not to interrogate it, but to see how still the water looked behind us. Evidence is one thing, what you build after is another. 10 years earlier, fireflies hovered like a promise. Now the promise is simple. I don't bet on my life. I build it. And when I catch a label that doesn't belong, I stop the tape, mark the minute, and tell the story straight.